Chapter 341. Luo Nan recognized that Gear was currently attracting flies. In Acumen College, Gear possessed a bit of a mysterious color. Even Xia Junping, a layman, had heard of names like the Ritual Society. He said that it was very suitable for carrying out mystic rituals. Then there was Luo Nan. It was hard for the professionals and experts to not feel that something was fishy. Actually, the Xia City branch had already made an assessment before the spies from all walks of life flooded in. They also said that the structure of the building was out of the ordinary. As for where the specific beauty lay, they were unable to come to a conclusion for a while. Because of this, He Yuan suggested that Luo Nan follow the principle of opening up is better than blocking, and let the spies in first. This way they could not block everything and let the people from all walks of life speculate in their hearts. The matter of headquarters could serve as a warning. This was a smart method, but it was also a cowardly move. Luo Nan acted according to He Yuan and the others' instructions for a week. He turned a blind eye to the spies' actions on the surface, but in reality he was fretful in his heart. He could not stop the spies from all sides. He could only swallow his anger, but this did not mean that Luo Nan would treat the spies well. He already had a plan in mind. He let the supervising engineer do as he pleased and let him wander around the underground space. He did not express any opinions or emotions for over half an hour. The sky was already dark. The supervising engineer and the project manager were completely unable to grasp Luo Nan's pulse. They were unable to continue. Hu Huaying could roughly see Luo Nan's attitude at this time. She stood up and said a few words, sending the supervising engineer and the project manager away. After waiting for the outsiders to get lost, Hu Huaying asked, "Nanster, is this project not to your liking?" Luo Nan shook his head. "I don't understand professional matters, but there's nothing to be dissatisfied with. Let them continue to repair it. You know, this place is of great importance to me. It would be fine if nothing happened, but if something did happen, I need to take some precautions. When that happens, I won't be able to find outsiders." Old Xia said that this construction didn't restore the previous defense system. He wanted you to personally design it. You certainly don't lack professionals. Hu Huaying giggled, more or less flattering him. Last week at Ocean Sky Cloud City, he saw with his own eyes how the arrogance of the young master of the He family was suppressed. No, he wasn't suppressed. The flames were extinguished on their own. The group of people surrounding Luo Nan were all very mysterious. Perhaps they had great backgrounds. Especially He Donglo's older sister. According to their later understanding, she really was He Donglo's older sister. She had just retired from the special forces and returned home. Who would have thought that she and Luo Nan would play together? In the past, she was a bit puzzled by Xia Junping's attitude of trying to befriend Luo Nan in every possible way. But now it was different. If he was given a chance, he would be 10 times more enthusiastic than Xia Junping. No matter what was said or done, the Xia family was still the #1 business group in Xia City. The Hu family was a level lower. If the Hu family worked hard to catch up, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the Hu family worked 10 times as hard as they could. At this point he had another thought. Old Xia didn't take good care of this person and instead went to play mysticism with Sissy Du. Was he relying on his relationship with him to stabilize? Or was he trying to cater to his preferences in another direction? While he was thinking, they walked out of the fire escape and entered an open space. The light was dim. There were no lights to illuminate the place. A dark and gloomy sky hovered above their heads. Hu Huaying had been leaning here for several days now. She had a clear understanding of the architectural layout of Gear and the maintenance process. She swept a glance and said, "The atrium here is a bit messy. It's hard to avoid some junk falling down during the repairs. We have to wait until the end to clean it up." Luo Nan grunted and raised his head to look up. Gear had 7 floors underground, 4 floors above ground, and a half-sealed rooftop. There were a total of 12 floors. Right now they were on the lowest floor, looking at the ceiling of the atrium that was several dozen meters high. The architectural layout of Gear was different from the vulgar. Only an architect or an insider like Luo Nan could understand how extraordinary it was. And the directions and angles were all different. However, for many people, the deepest impression they had of Gear was the almost paranoid circular, stacked nested structure inside Gear. And the most eye-catching of the series of structures was the perfectly straight atrium that connected all the floors before Luo Nan's eyes. The atrium of Gear was different from most similar structures. The atrium of Gear was located on the westernmost side of the building. Its edge was the outer wall of the building. Its height exceeded 50 meters and the area it occupied wasn't small. If the lighting wasn't turned on and the angle of sunlight wasn't suitable, the pitch-black hole would be very frightening when looking down from above. Thinking about it in a crooked way, this was a good place to commit suicide. The outer wall of the atrium was surrounded by high-strength bulletproof glass, most likely to prevent similar situations from occurring. Every floor didn't leave a single gap. Jumping down really required skill. Luo Nan stood at the bottom of the atrium and raised his head to look at the sky. He could see the evening sky. The dusky sky was smeared with colorful paint. Aside from a sliver of the setting sun, the only thing that could be seen was the lights of the metropolis. The atrium had a diameter of 12 meters. It was already extremely spacious, but due to the height issue, it appeared rather slender no matter what angle one looked at it from. Only when one reached the bottom and personally experienced it would one know just how enormous this space was. Luo Nan smiled at Xuelei. You can train here every day. The air isn't stuffy, right? When it rains you can seal off the rooftop. It's more convenient than outside. I can give it a try. Xuelei grinned. He had been treating himself as a bodyguard ever since he entered gear. He didn't utter a single word and was extremely vigilant. He even operated the testing equipment provided by the society in secret, in case the construction team left behind some things that couldn't see the light of day. Right now he was chatting with Luo Nan and he finally relaxed. He imitated Luo Nan and raised his head to look at the sky. He suddenly had a strange thought. The rooftop ceiling platform should also be made of glass. It's like an astronomical telescope. Actually, it does have this function. Hu Huaying remembered that there was information about this in the information. She immediately showed off. It can be realized through an internal mounting module. The equipment room is on the 6th floor underground. Of course, special lenses are needed. The modification can be completed in an hour. Of course, this telescope can't be turned. Can only look at a small area above our heads. An hour? Xuelei was a bit moved. He really wanted to see it. Hu Huaying hurriedly added, it can't be done now. This function was remodeled in 91. Not long after it was completed, the Order Club collapsed. The newly purchased equipment was completely sold off. They lost several $100,000 after depreciation. Are you playing with me? Xuelei rolled his eyes. Before he could say anything, Luo Nan sneered, drawing legs on a snake. Hu Huaying was stunned. Honestly speaking, she didn't understand what Luo Nan meant by these words. But it didn't affect her from echoing. So, the snake's claws have been chopped off. Luo Nan didn't say anything. He looked up at the night sky above his head in silence. It was unknown where his thoughts drifted. Hu Huaying and Xuelei locked gazes. They were just about to speak when Luo Nan raised his arm to look at his wristband. His brows furrowed. Someone's looking for me. Third bro, you chat with Xuelei first. I'm going to take a call. Hu Huaying really wanted to agree. Then she would drag Luo Nan and Xuelei out for a meal and a game to strengthen their friendship. But she thought about it again. Luo Nan had an introverted temperament. He couldn't be impatient when it came to making friends. This was to avoid going overboard. She immediately said, you go do what you need to do. I won't stay any longer. Sure enough, Luo Nan didn't urge her to stay. He nodded and thanked her once more. Then he hurriedly walked into the fire escape passageway. It looked like this was a very private call. Xuelei and Hu Huaying rode the elevator together to send Luo Nan off. Soon, peace was restored in the atrium. Luo Nan waited for the elevator to go up. He didn't turn on his wristband as he stood in the fire escape passageway. Instead, he squinted his eyes and his telepathic thoughts leaped out. He arrived at a business hotel several dozen kilometers away. His temporary partner, Peony, had used the rubber band to give Inca special stimulation. Luo Nan sensed it. As for the reason, it was very simple. The meeting was adjourned. Luo Nan looked at his watch. It was around 6 o'clock in the evening. The meeting had been going on for nearly 9 hours. Peony walked into the elevator with Ink still holding onto her shoulder. They looked quite compatible. But it was different from when they came. There was another person in the elevator. It was none other than Long 7. The two didn't have any intentions of communicating further. Long 7 was paying more attention to Ink in the elevator. He exited the elevator and went to the underground parking lot. He walked straight to the front row of parking spaces. There was a supercar there. It wasn't low-key at all. Luo Nan vaguely remembered that this was where old Jin parked his car. Where did the man in the car go? Old Jin's commoner SUV drove in right when he was baffled. It flashed its lights twice and stopped in front of Peony at the elevator entrance. Clearly he hadn't waited a day in vain. He had bought a Big Mac from who knows where and he was eating it with relish. Peony let Ink go to the front passenger seat while she sat in the back. Old Jin opened the window, dispersing the smell in the car. Then the car started, but he heard Long Seven call out at this time. "See you tomorrow." Peony waved her hand rather reservedly, and the car soon drove out of the underground parking lot. Only now did Peony get down to business. She spoke quickly. "The meeting will continue tomorrow. I will send the relevant information and meeting records to the internal cloud space. Please check and receive them." Luo Nan actually wanted to seriously ask about the situation at the meeting, but he thought of Zhang Yingying's previous attitude. He hesitated a bit, but in the end he didn't say much. The car entered a state of silence. Now it was old Jin's turn to ask, "Where do I get off?" Luo Nan remembered that Peony seemed to be someone from Acumen College. It was impossible for this woman not to be suspicious when he got off the car with her. Since the firm couldn't hide his true identity, he might as well play it to the end. "I'll leave once we're out of the parking lot. Then see you tomorrow." No one exchanged pleasantries. They waited for the car to drive onto the main road and Ink jumped out of the car. It spread its wings and flew into the night sky. At the same time, Luo Nan logged into the cloud space over at Gear. He looked through the meeting records. He had gotten the relevant documents from Trigate Corporation. This company did things fairly properly. At the very least, the meeting records were clean and clear. Peony even marked them one by one, highlighting the key points. Luo Nan really didn't know where she got the energy and time. Aside from the information, she even wrote a short report, introducing the situation of the participants. The focus of attention was naturally Long Seven. Peony had already come to a preliminary conclusion, but the point of entry was that fashionable ear. In Peony's report, the earring was made from some sort of superplastic memory alloy material. It could greatly deform under high temperatures. It was a mechanical key favored by burners. In other words, Long Seven was very likely to be a deep blue walker. Plus, this person was relatively familiar with Xia City. He also had the special ability of radiation decontamination. Peony had already locked onto her target. Chapter 342. It had only been a few hours and he had been skinned? Luo Nan grinned and looked at Peony's report in detail. The report simply indicated that Snake 7 had once appeared in the Society's operation to rescue Rui Wen. Of course, he was on the opposing side of the Society. Luo Nan didn't have a deep impression of this person. After all, 7 or 8 deep blue walkers had gathered that night and there were many casualties. Only the heavens knew who was who. The only memory he had was a review report after the operation. There was this code name on it, representing that this person was deeply involved in the conflict. That was all. Right now, Luo Nan didn't have emotions like, so it was him. His attention was a bit distracted. Thinking deeper, there was no reason for this Snake 7 or Dragon 7 to not use similar methods when they returned. The focus of their analysis was certainly Peony, but as an eye-catching symbol, Ink, the giant crow, would most likely be used as a starting point. Could it be concealed? Ink was quite high profile that night, especially in the first half of the night. There were more than 1 or 2 eyewitnesses in the underground fighting arena. As Luo Nan furrowed his brows in thought, a refresh symbol appeared in the cloud space document. With a light tap, the entire document was updated. The amount of text instantly increased by quite a bit. Upon closer inspection, there was even more detailed information regarding Snake 7 listed out in the document. So Luo Nan knew that Snake 7 was a very talented ability user, but he was determined to become a deep blue walker. He joined Quantum Corporation of his own accord and became a special model tester at a young age. Later, he strongly requested to join the operation team and transferred to the Sky Blue Security Company. As for what his personality was like, how he handled things and how his family relations were, they were all covered in the document. Luo Nan originally thought that this character was quite mysterious, but in the blink of an eye he was exposed to the light of day. There was practically nowhere he could hide. Strands of cold air seeped through Luo Nan's teeth. His heart felt cold. He withdrew from the cloud space, his mind a bit chaotic. But one thing was very clear. With his current fame, special position and use, every intelligence agency would absolutely not let him go. One small clue would reveal the general trend. From the perspective of Snake 7's fate, perhaps every intelligence agency had a document regarding him on their desks right now. They were constantly updated. Each and every one of his actions would be like Snake 7's. He would be completely exposed to the eyes of others. There would be no more secrets to speak of. Luo Nan stood at the bottom of the atrium in a daze. A few dozen seconds later, his wristband vibrated. Xuelei called. I'm training in the open space in front of gear. Just give me a shout when you get home. Oh. Luo Nan responded subconsciously. Then he came back to his senses and expressed his refusal. It's already dinner time. You can go back. You don't need to wait for me. School had already ended. The reason Xuelei said this was because he understood Luo Nan's pace of life. Luo Nan's training time was around this time every day. He needed to attend classes and study, so he made up his mind to stick to it. So boring to go home alone. It's better to go together. Luo Nan spat. Then we'll separate at the school gate. Right now Luo Nan was living at his aunt's house, while Xuelei was in the Twin River district. One went east and the other went west. It would be strange if they went the same way. At the end of the day, Xuelei was still focused on being a bodyguard, afraid that shameless people like the headquarters would appear again. Xuelei also felt that it was quite ridiculous, so he asked, speaking of which, when are you going to be independent? You don't have to go to the hospital for treatment now. Auntie isn't afraid that I'll go for treatment. She's afraid that I'll suddenly go in for treatment again. Luo Nan knew that his health credit had gone bankrupt, and he was unable to explain the concept of the coupling of soul and flesh to Mrs. Luo Shuqing. He could only place his hopes on someone else. My cousin will be back next week. I'll give it another try with her attracting the firepower. The two chatted a bit more and Xuelei went to practice boxing. Luo Nan was actually quite envious of Xuelei's current state. This week, with Xie Juanping's help, Xuelei had already changed his relationship with the society. Xuelei had no worries in the future. Aside from being Luo Nan's bodyguard every day, Xuelei had a large amount of time to spend on martial cultivation. Compared to his close friend, Luo Nan's mood fluctuated quite a bit. Especially now he was stimulated by the intelligence file. His heart was quite restless and he didn't have the mind to think about practical matters. He paced a few steps under the atrium before raising his head. In a daze, the perfectly straight atrium and the ring-shaped night sky were like a prison, sealing him inside. No, that's not right. How could there be a prison in his mother's work? Luo Nan's thoughts changed when he thought of his mother. He looked at the atrium again. The structure was one and the same. It went from the bottom to the top as if it led to the depths of the starry sky. It was limitless. When all was said and done, those thoughts just now were born from fear in his heart, drawing a prison. Luo Nan shook his head and scattered the illusions. He looked at the time. There were still a few minutes until the appointed time. He sat down cross-legged and recalled the breathing technique personally taught to him by Gym Master Xiao. He tried to calm his mind. Several breaths later, the tides of his mind did indeed calm down a bit. He even closed his eyes and began to move his mind. The energy within his body was polished, and the heart lantern of the eye's orifice burned with brilliance. Gradually, the distracting thoughts in his mind were burned to nothing. According to coupling theory, there were two relatively complete gears in the structure of Luo Nan's body and soul. One was soul strength, born from formatting theory. It had long since surpassed the limits of what the fleshly body could endure. Its power was great and difficult to control. Luo Nan relied on the hollow depository function of the external neuron to form a stable structure. Even so, it overflowed outwards at every moment. It was like an iceberg towering above the vast ocean. It was vast and majestic, and the pressure it exerted was extreme. Luo Nan gave it a name. It was called the God Gear. The other was the structure of the eye's orifice. Xiao Xinyu imparted a technique that relied on the natural wonders of the human body. It also happened to borrow Luo Nan's special circumstances to construct a brand new medium for transferring and refining soul strength. It formed the heart lantern of the eye's orifice and stimulated the potential of the human body. Luo Nan called it the body gear. According to Gym Master Xiao's words, the cultivation of the eye's orifice was only a beginning in the cultivation of the fleshly body. Compared to the towering iceberg and vast ocean of the god Gear, the eye's orifice could only be described as a small reservoir. It played an auxiliary role. The god Gear and the body Gear built an embryonic order frame within Luo Nan's body. They meshed with each other through the method of coupling, influencing each other. Though the frame was formed, it was still simple and crude. It relied more on external objects. Without the suppression of the external neuron, it was guaranteed that Luo Nan would be instantly faced with a calamity. Even with the external neuron suppressing him, electricity and fire flowed between the god Gear and the body Gear. Their energies clashed and several thunderclouds and storms swept through every day. It was hard for outsiders to understand the suffering within. It was precisely these dangers hidden deep within Luo Nan's body that left no leeway for trial and error. There were no sentiments to speak of. They forced Luo Nan to use the most focused attitude to carefully cultivate his foundation, to fix the fragile balance bit by bit. As long as he began to cultivate, all trivial and distracting thoughts would be annihilated into a puff of smoke. It was quite worthwhile to use them to dispel negative emotions. Luo Nan no longer had the concept of time once he entered the meditative state. Fortunately, Luo Nan remembered that he still had training classes to attend. He only did a bit of maintenance on the structure of the eye's orifice. He dissolved the overly powerful interference power of electricity and fire, and then he finished his homework. His senses were exceptionally sharp when he entered the meditative state. His mind was tranquil and all the surrounding information entered his mind. He felt a marvelous sound seep into his ears. It was like the fine ticking of the minute and second hands of a clock. It rotated in circles without beginning and without end. Luo Nan was not surprised at all. From his perspective, this was the breathing of Gear. The building had 12 floors above and below the ground. Especially on the ground, including the atrium, there were 15 main halls. It was like a well-adjusted machine. Every part worked smoothly and the teeth meshed together. Only then could there be such a harmonious rhythm. From Luo Nan's perspective, this was the sound of nature. It was the reward for his earnest cultivation. He subconsciously wore a smile on his face as he listened to this clear and orderly rhythm. However, just a few seconds later, there was a noise that made a sizzling sound. At first, it was just a single noise that suddenly affected the beat. But a few seconds later, the noise arose one after another. It was like the sudden insertion of dry and hoarse croaks during a band's performance. The noise rose and fell at random, turning a perfectly good performance into a nightmare. Luo Nan suddenly opened his eyes. The sound of nature was no longer there, but the noise still existed. It was layer upon layer of crisscrossing radio waves. The source came from every corner of the building. Cameras, bugs, optical cables, antennas. There were all sorts of forms. They gathered all sorts of information and transmitted it out. They were like pairs of cold and gloomy eyes, spying on Luo Nan's every move from every angle. It was like he was in a prison. Luo Nan raised his head. The darkness could not obstruct the strengthened vision of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Separated by the integrated glass, a certain burglar camera on the 3rd floor of the basement was pointed at him. It was done openly. There was more than one monitoring device working in the surroundings. Luo Nan pursed his lips. He wanted to get angry, but he inexplicably felt that this was absurd and ridiculous. The corner of his lips unconsciously curled up. He was just worried that Long Seven's misfortune would fall on his head. He never thought that his thoughts would become a prophecy. Hey he. What should come would come. Luo Nan squeezed out a dry voice from his mouth. The negative emotions that he had just dispelled were like a storm that suddenly descended. Rolling thunderclouds crackled as they assaulted his mind. Bang! The burglar camera on the 3rd floor of the basement exploded into pieces. Similar shattering sounds rang out from every corner of the building at practically the same time. Of course, there was also the muffled sound of tripping brakes. Direct methods brought about crude consequences. The sparse lighting within the building of Gear was instantly extinguished. Then the central control system operated spontaneously, activating the backup circuitry. But unfortunately it failed. The listening devices were so concentrated that even the backup system was hard-pressed to escape. Luo Nan stood within the darkness, coldly feeling everything. But then Xue Lei's phone call came in the next moment. He was so nervous that his voice changed. Report your location. Mentally connect. I'm fine. Luo Nan didn't know how to explain things to Xue Lei. His wristband vibrated once more, and the central control system activated manual operation mode. It asked him if he wanted to use the maintenance robots to carry out emergency repairs. Luo Nan agreed in passing and found a reason. The quality of those people's work is abysmal. Yeah, that's it. And at this time the hexier vibrated. On the psychic wave network, Bamboo Pole followed the teaching plan and went online on time to greet Luo Nan. This was the usual procedure, but today's message was a bit odd. Chapter 343. Luo Nan was stunned by the inexplicable message, but he soon connected it with the unforeseen event from before. How did he know? They're spying on me. Oh, I think they told me about it a few days ago. The direct logic aroused his anger, but a portion of his blurry memories became clear. The two sides collided, turning into a wave of meaningless emotional turmoil. Yes, He Yuan had proposed to install monitoring and alarm equipment in gear at the beginning of the Xia City branch's testing. This was to deal with unusual situations. Luo Nan agreed at the time. Bamboo Pole was responsible for the installation, and he even integrated the control system into his wristband. This was great. When Bamboo Pole lost his temper, he didn't differentiate between friend and foe. He killed them all. Luo Nan wanted to leave a message in reply, but he didn't know what to say. He only said a few useless words after a while. It's nothing. If it's nothing then it's nothing. Are we still going to class today? Bamboo Pole's attitude really wasn't that of a qualified teacher. He had always been like this. The training courses arranged by He Yuan had been going on for nearly a month now. Papercut's soul strength activation techniques had become extremely simple due to Luo Nan's achievements in coupling ability. He was the first to finish. He Yuan's world order in and out of the psychic wave network had finished 2 days ago. Crack Burst and Red Fox's practical courses needed to be adjusted due to the changes in the situation, including Luo Nan's increase in ability. They had yet to officially begin. Only Bamboo Pole's notes on the most important people of the world class was still progressing steadily. Emotional turmoil wasn't a reason to refuse class. Luo Nan replied, I'm on. Can we start now? No problem. Bamboo Pole immediately skipped over the unpleasant matters. As usual, he sent over a set of pictures of people, videos, and other image materials. He confirmed the main content of today's class, and then he activated the video call function. He raised his hand in greeting and then he started chatting face-to-face with Luo Nan. Bamboo Pole was the only one who spoke most of the time. The content was probably, don't be fooled by his sanctimonious appearance. In fact, his lovers are all beautiful. Don't be surprised. This was Bamboo Pole's usual teaching method. It was known as teaching through fun. This bro was the most knowledgeable fellow Luo Nan had ever seen. He usually presented himself as a hacker and he conveniently searched for all sorts of beautiful women. But he had deep attainments in religion, history, mystic arts, and so on. He was also a master paparazzi. His class was mainly about characters. He would only talk about 2 or 3 characters in each class, sometimes even just one. He would talk about official matters, trivial matters, news, gossip, and so on. There were many different levels and angles. Often, after a class, the characters he talked about would stand out and be hard to forget. But in terms of progress, it was really slow. Looking at the course plan, He Yuan's course capacity was about the same as his. However, the former's course had already ended, and Bamboo Pole's 100 characters hadn't even talked about half of them. Bamboo Pole said bluntly, if you learn half of these courses, if you're really interested, you'll find out for yourself. Even if you don't want to learn, you'll learn it anyway. If you're really not interested, you can just treat it as idle chatter and have some fun. This way the curriculum can be long or short and it can be adjusted at any time. He knew very well that Luo Nan's mood wasn't right today, so his lecture was relatively simple. The content of the lecture didn't unfold. In the end, he even took the initiative to ask, why don't we stop here first? Luo Nan woke up from his absent-minded state. He knew that he wasn't paying attention. He was quite embarrassed, so he promptly apologized. Bamboo Pole responded with a beaming smile. No need to be so formal. Actually, I'm just an intelligence agent that serves the boss. I'm in charge of pushing information. If the boss has time, then I'll report a bit more information. If he doesn't have time, then I'll report a bit less. The boss has been quite busy lately, right? Luo Nan was helpless. The group of people who participated in the Frost River reality incident would call him boss every now and then. This was originally Red Fox's way of mocking him in Hiyuan, but it had grown louder and louder these days. The malice had been erased and it had become a nickname that everyone knew. For a mischievous person like Bamboo Pole, he wouldn't feel comfortable if he didn't call him a few times a day. Luonan could only ignore him, but Bamboo Pole was right. Luonan had been courting death these past few days. He had found worker Zhai to be his tutor, learning the relevant knowledge of engineering. The amount of time and energy required to have some accomplishments in this major subject was far greater than a package of crash courses. However, his bad mood today had nothing to do with the pressure of learning. Right now, Luonan wasn't in the mood to attend classes. He really wanted to communicate with someone, but he didn't know where to start. He subconsciously flipped through the information on the person he had just obtained. This person's name and past deeds were all forgotten after a single glance. However, Bamboo Pole's habit of organizing the information from multiple angles and layers made Luonan make some associations. How many bugs were piled up in this information? The corner of Luonan's lips twitched. Does every famous person do research like this? Most of it is public information. Of course, a lot of it is the sweat and blood of paparazzi. Bamboo Pole raised an eyebrow. You're only average in this course. Otherwise, you could use it as a template. It wouldn't be a problem for you to become the #1 paparazzi in a large entertainment media company. Luonan suddenly had a strange thought. I can be considered a famous person now, right? To a certain extent, yes. Then, Brother Bamboo Pole, what kind of person am I? How do you research me? Luonan actually wanted to know just how much he had exposed to the various intelligence agencies. However, his ability to express himself was truly worrisome. It caused Bamboo Pole's understanding to be a bit off. You feel confused about life. You want to do a self-analysis? Luonan wanted to correct Bamboo Pole, but he had second thoughts. Zhang Yingying's words had made his mind restless before he came to gear. His terrible mood had been buried ever since then. It would be good if he could get to the bottom of it. You can say that. On the other side of the screen, Bamboo Pole sat on an ergonomic chair. He adjusted himself into a comfortable position. I've mentioned the method of researching people to you before. It's nothing more than the 3 aspects of nature, society, and psychology. Luonan nodded. It was true that he had learned this before, but it was quite complicated when he actually began to delve into it. Bamboo Pole chuckled. You asked in a hurry. I wasn't prepared. However, since you asked, let's treat this matter as material. Let's do a simple analysis. Luonan was indifferent. Let's first talk about your problem. A normal person, a person of society, has an instinctive mentality of privacy and a mentality of vigilance. People pay attention to other people's evaluations of themselves, but they very rarely take the initiative to ask others to judge them. Unless they want to show off or they lack self-confidence. This is the meaning of asking for guidance. And all of these are considered morbid. Luonan grunted and couldn't help but laugh. Let's just ask for guidance. It looks like the symptoms are a bit lighter. Bamboo Pole shook his head. There's no need to ask me. Ask yourself. Ask yourself right now. Ask yourself. How is your body's condition under natural conditions? Is it vigorous like a dragon or fierce like a tiger? Or do you have a hidden illness? Be frank. Your body hasn't completely recovered yet. Luonan couldn't do without the external neuron right now. The difference in scale between the God gear and the body gear was a stubborn illness. This was especially true for the uncontrollable growth of his mental strength. He still had no clue as to how to solve this problem. Fortunately, the number of human-faced arachnids that wandered through Xia City was gradually decreasing. Otherwise, Luonan might really explode if the wraith sign of the blood flame order doubled in hunting speed. He had learned the acupoint cultivation technique from Gym Master Xiu, but he was unable to digest it on a large scale. Bamboo Pole didn't ask further. He changed the angle. What's your situation like in terms of social conditions? This time Luonan didn't hesitate. He answered, not good. Although he had the Xia City branch behind him and quite a few friends, headquarters, Quantum Corporation, the Order of Justice, and the Blood Flame Order were all latent threats. If all of them were to explode, even 10 Luonans would turn to dust. In terms of psychological conditions, forget it. It's obvious. Bamboo Pole smacked his lips. There's a situation in all 3 major areas. The answer doesn't need to be said. Brother, to tell you the truth, the problem is heavy. Luonan didn't expect that this would be the result after a bit of analysis based on bamboo pole's template. Wasn't this completely warped? He forgot about the matter of the intelligence organization for a moment. He stared blankly for a moment before asking, "How should I solve it?" Bamboo pole spread his hands. "You want me to be your advisor? How can I be counted on to do something that even secretary he can't do?" Luonan knew this, but he still wanted to ask, "Brother Bamboo Pole, if you were in my position, what would you do?" "If I were you, I would turn around and leave. I would run as far as I could. I would hide as deep as I could. This is what they call a cicada shedding its carapace. Retreat in order to advance. Turn light into darkness. Forget it. I know you wouldn't do this. Just treat it like I'm talking nonsense." Bamboo Pole's mind was clear-headed from beginning to end. He sighed. "How about this? I'll give you 2 examples for reference. I've talked about the first one before. Her Majesty Empress Wu. At the very beginning, when Her Majesty Empress Wu just made her debut, many people said that she was Wu Mainyang, that she amused people with her beauty. They said she was Wu Jiaoyi Empress Wu. They called Her Majesty Empress Wu all the way to Her Majesty Empress Wu, but she remained unmoved. It could be said that a rock doesn't turn in a flowing river. She's round on the outside but square on the inside. Round on the outside but square on the inside. Luonan instinctively felt that these words weren't right. Bamboo Pole insisted on his own opinion. "Did you forget? I told you before. Her Majesty Empress Wu is very domineering, but she was able to maneuver freely in the past. Her methods were extraordinary. First, she borrowed President Ouyang's power, then she became independent and established the hidden Indigo firm. She recruited non-combatants. She never kept a low profile, but she never crossed the line. She has a multitude of talented people under her command. It's not like she didn't have enemies in Xia City before, including headquarters. Now she has either pacified them or swept them flat. No matter what the wind and waves are like, she remains unmoved. She steadily strengthens, finally becoming a great power. It's said that her actions are like heaven and her people are like ghosts. She deeply understands the true essence of techniques and power." Bamboo Pole was not stingy with his words of praise for Her Majesty Empress Wu. He was endless. This type of person who is as unmoving as a mountain can be said to be the path of an emperor. Some people think that the words Her Majesty Empress Wu are mocking, but I feel that it's quite appropriate. In my personal opinion, this is the most brilliant path. Luonan imagined Her Majesty Empress Wu's methods of maneuvering freely. He was fascinated for a time. "This path is very difficult, right?" Bamboo Pole laughed. "She has a clear goal from the beginning. Her methods are incisive. She uses both the carrot and the stick. You can't learn it. It's too late for you to learn it." Luonan was speechless. "I used this as an example to give you a benchmark. I used it as a reference. Let's talk about the second example. I haven't talked about it before, but you're certainly familiar with this person. She's your secretary." Chapter 344. Through the psychic wave network, Bamboo Pole looked straight at him and grinned. "I won't say much about other things, but since you've attended both my class and Secretary He's class, don't you have any thoughts?" "Probably." Luonan's heart wasn't as hesitant as his mouth was. After all, He Yuan and Bamboo Pole were both teaching cultural classes, and their styles were completely different. In private he couldn't help but make some comparisons. Bamboo Pole encouraged, Tell me. There was no need to say much about Bamboo Pole's teaching methods. As for He Yuan, Luonan thought for a bit and said, Sister Yuan teaches. All sorts of information is readily available at her fingertips. She covers a wide range of details and the context is clear. She is very captivating. What else? His arguments are precise and his words are eloquent. Furthermore, they are often sharp and penetrating to the bone. Most of the time he points directly at the deeper business behind important events. The relationship between the secular world and the inner world, the traditional political structure and the new powers of ability users, is clearly understood. Bamboo Pole's eyebrows twitched. What you've just said, I think I've done pretty well. Of course, I can forget about the righteous promise part. But don't just praise me. Do you think I don't have any flaws? Or is it something different from me? He saw that Luonan was a bit hesitant, so he urged Luonan with all his might, Relax. I won't blabber. Plus, even if I say it, people will be open-minded. They won't care. I don't know what's missing. In the end, Luo Nan was an honest child. He didn't want to gossip behind Luo Nan's back. He pondered for a while before saying, I'm different from you. The knowledge points in class are more concentrated and the pace is much faster than yours. Bamboo Pole laughed heartily and clapped his hands. That's right. Huh. Luo Nan didn't understand what was so funny about this. Bamboo Pole reminded him further. Isn't the timetable he arranged for you for the same reason? From morning till night you followed him closely? It's all right. It's not particularly tight. Besides, if I don't do this, how can I quickly grasp knowledge? Of course you think it's normal because you and she are the same kind of person. They're all like a taut bow. When they shoot out an arrow, it's sharp and indestructible. But what about during normal times? Luo Nan was slightly stunned. This was the first time he had heard someone place him on the same level as He Yuan. Bamboo Pole continued, no one in the branch can keep up with Secretary He's fast pace. It's as if there's a beast chasing after her. Ever since she had joined, she had assisted in the affairs of the branch and drawn up various systems. Of course it was good, but it was a loose association and they weren't in a state of war. Who could persevere every day? Out of 100 people, 10 are used to it, 10 are persevering, 50 are slackers and 30 are dragging us down. Before we can face the external enemies we will collapse internally. Luo Nan seriously suspected that Bamboo Pole had seized the opportunity to ridicule him. As a hacker, this guy was naturally skeptical of all constraints. He was a standard anarchist and he never hid this when he taught. But Luo Nan really admired one thing about Bamboo Pole. Ridicule was ridicule, but Bamboo Pole and He Yuan were the best partners in these operations. Their tacit understanding was the highest. We are talking about an example. Bamboo Pole adjusted his posture on the ergonomic chair and said helplessly, in a sense, people like Secretary He are very self-centered. Don't doubt me, I'm talking about you. Unconsciously or unconsciously, you always think that the earth will rotate according to your rhythm. Luo Nan, who was self-centered, could only listen. Let's not talk about it. Secretary He is actually a great person. She has a bit of a messiah mentality. She always feels that her way of doing things is good for everyone. She has a sense of responsibility for all living beings under the heavens. Perhaps with her family background she really does know more secrets, dangers and unspeakable difficulties than we do. But for a hopeless fellow like me she's a bit boring. I can't raise any interest in pursuing her. Bamboo Pole's eyes slanted as he spoke to this point. What about you? The silence lasted for a moment. Luo Nan was baffled. Why aren't you talking? Bamboo Pole spread his hands. I'm asking you. You're much more autistic than Secretary He and her goals are clearer than yours. Her techniques are more superb and her mind is clearer. She knows her own shortcomings and she is constantly improving. But you're different. You're only 16 years old, right? You're underage, immature and your temperament isn't set. You have a head full of bizarre thoughts. Don't say it out loud. Isn't it tiring to use your brain to guess? Luo Nan's lips twitched. This wasn't the first time he had heard such an evaluation, but it was rare for Bamboo Pole to use an example as a foil. Luo Nan felt a bit sorry for He Yuan. Just as he was about to speak, Bamboo Pole raised his hand. There's no need to say things like justifying formatting theory and protecting my mother's work. Then what else was there to say? Luo Nan choked in an instant. Bamboo Pole stared at him for a long time before sighing. You don't have any other goals? Luo Nan imitated him and spread his hands. Just these aren't enough? What else do you want? Bamboo Pole sighed once more. Isn't this enough? Huh. What's there to dissect? You've said a long string but the conclusion is already very clear. You and Secretary He are the same kind of people. You both live your days with your bowstrings stretched taut. Your goals are the source of your pressure. This is because those things are very hard to deal with. They are very hard to achieve. Luo Nan didn't like hearing these words. It's very hard to achieve? As long as it involves confrontation, it's very hard. Bamboo Pole took care of Luo Nan's mood. He erased a key phrase and highlighted another. Who are the people standing against you? If the disparity is too great, the harder you work, the greater the pressure. Unless you possess the ability to flatten everything, or at the very least, you have the ability to make most people compromise. Just like Her Majesty Empress Wu. Luo Nan was silent. Even Her Majesty Empress Wu rarely directly confronts a certain colossus. For her, growing and strengthening is her #1 priority. She takes the initiative. He prioritizes things. He has to do things step by step. It doesn't matter if she takes a few detours. Secretary He's route is very clear. It's to integrate the society's stragglers and stragglers. Perhaps her methods are worth discussing, but she has a strong backbone. She has many resources and her selfishness is even less. What about you? You charge your way towards your goal. You flatten all the traps and mechanisms. Fortunately, you're a stubborn piece of iron. You'll treat ordinary checkpoints as hammering blows. If it were someone else, they would have long since been smashed into meat paste. But in the future, will Quantum Corporation, the Order of Justice, and those people from headquarters continue to hammer you? Or will they set up a blast furnace and melt you in one breath? Luo Nan's eyelids twitched. This was the situation he was worried about. However, Bamboo Pole's words seemed to have deviated once more. He was no longer simply analyzing Luo Nan. Luo Nan was still uncertain, so he followed along with Bamboo Pole's tone and asked, "Then Brother Bamboo Pole, what do you think I should do next?" Only when the words left his mouth did Luo Nan remember that he had asked Bamboo Pole for guidance not too long ago. Back then, Bamboo Pole had refused, and Her Majesty Empress Wu and He Yuan were 2 examples. Sure enough, Bamboo Pole extended a hand and pointed at him. "You're asking me this again. What's the point of asking me? I dare to bet that with your temper, no matter what extravagant flowery words other people say, you'll still follow your temper when things come to a head. Vaten. Whether it's a hammer or a blast furnace in front of you, there's no difference." Luo Nan really didn't have much hope in his control. There was just one point where he admitted that Bamboo Pole was wrong. "I don't want to play with Flatten. Who wouldn't be happy if they could reach their goal more easily? But when things come to a head, I have no choice." "Then how do you get yourself to the point where things come to a head time and time again?" Luo Nan really did consider this question seriously for a moment. Since when did he always fall into a situation where there was no way out? He didn't obtain an answer, but there was one thing that was very clear. If these days continued, the times where things came to a head would grow more and more frequent. The opportunities for him to make choices would grow smaller and smaller until there were none. Bamboo Pole looked at Luo Nan's expression and could roughly understand Luo Nan's current bewilderment. "So I'll still say the same thing. If I were you, I would certainly run as far as I can. It's not because of fear or cowardice. It's because you have enough space to act as a buffer. Only then can you grow and strengthen. Only then can you have the leeway to choose." "That's impossible." Luo Nan didn't even need to think before he refused. Bamboo Pole had expected this long ago. His eyes didn't even blink as he immediately said, "Then you need a shield and a rein. The shield will give you a chance to catch your breath on the battlefield. The rein will strangle your neck when you're hot-headed." Luo Nan blinked his eyes. "Brother Bamboo Pole, you can speak a bit more bluntly." Bamboo Pole rolled his eyes. "I've already spoken bluntly enough." "Fine. What I mean is that you need to find a backer." "Backer? Rely on who?" Bamboo Pole looked at him like he was looking at an idiot. "Who in Xia City can you rely on right now?" "President Ouyang." "Get lost, you idiot." Luo Nan grunted. He felt quite wronged. There were only 2 extraordinaries who could protect him in Xia City. What was wrong with him thinking of Ouyang Chen in the first instance? Luo Nan's thoughts spun again. Only then did he realize that the example that Bamboo Pole spared no effort in talking was absolutely not just for show. "You want me to rely on Her Majesty Empress Wu?" Luo Nan knew that he had finally guessed correctly when he saw Bamboo Pole's expression. However, he didn't quite understand Bamboo Pole's train of thought. "What's the difference between President Ouyang and Her Majesty Empress Wu? Also, aren't I under their protection right now? The Xia City branch taking care of you is official business. Since it's official business, it will be restricted by procedures. Accordingly, there will certainly be flaws. The matter with headquarters is the best proof. The same reasoning can be used on President Ouyang. Who let him be the president?" Bamboo Pole used his finger to point at Luo Nan from afar. "More importantly, in a loose organization like the society, there's no one who can control you. You can do stupid things and there's no way to restrain you. He Yuan is quite suitable, but she's standing in the wrong position from the start. She's the boss's secretary and the like. So awkward." Luo Nan was a bit embarrassed. "Brother Bamboo Pole, you're an anarchist. Everything you say is controlled. Is that really good? At the very least, I never caused trouble. Bamboo Pole stabbed a knife into Luo Nan's chest and twisted it. I rarely do stupid things. Even so, I sometimes find a place to rest and earn a bit of extra money. Idiot. I'm a lobbyist right now, Boss Luo. Chapter 345. Luo Nan bid farewell to Shuelei at the school gates and took a car back home. The car he rode in was sent by the Xia City branch. The driver was a professional security guard with extraordinary strength. The two were not familiar with each other, so they did not talk much on the way. Luo Nan was the only one staring blankly most of the time. It was just as Bamboo Pole said. Today Luo Nan had indeed become a lobbyist in addition to teaching. And the person who hired him was the legendary Her Majesty Empress Wu. Bamboo Pole was eloquent and his persuasive skills were sufficient. Luo Nan was indeed a bit moved at the time. But the awkward thing was that he had pretty much forgotten all of these words by the time he got in the car. It was not that he was not attentive, but that he was overly nervous. Luo Nan had always been the focal point of the society during his time there, but this was the first time he had accepted a genuine recruitment like today. He lacked the relevant social experience. His mind was a complete mess of distracting thoughts when he encountered this matter. He did not know how to respond. So much so that Luo Nan remembered the most clearly not the benefits Her Majesty Empress Wu would give him. Instead, it was Bamboo Pole's words of consolation. Boss Luo, you are not of age yet, but you are already a complete member of society. Things like this are unavoidable. You can seek the opinions of others. Ask more. Refer more. Don't rush to make a judgment. Her Majesty Empress Wu went through me and not through Zhang Yingying because that girl is too impatient. She wants to avoid playing the emotional card and affecting your judgment. These words were filled with sincerity, but the reason why Luo Nan remembered them was because Bamboo Pole's words, member of society, poked at his sore spot. Luo Nan opened the car window and rested his elbow on the window frame, feeling the incoming night wind. A moment later he used his other hand to draw a diagram. It was a tetrahedron and it was divided into 5 layers. According to formatting theory, this was the societal formatting diagram. From bottom to top, it was clearly divided into 5 layers: student, employee, technician, priest, and politician. This was the classification of the resources he controlled. It was barely possible to correspond to the outside society. Luo Nan still remembered his first conversation with Zhang Yingying on the ship Lanshan. He had solemnly vowed that he needed pressure and opportunity to enter a completely new circle to satisfy the needs of his rapid rise in social status. His voice was still in his ears. He had truly taken this step, but how could he have imagined that he would be at a loss today? He didn't think that his initial choice was wrong, but was this kind of passive situation inevitable? If one viewed life as a game, then the path he had chosen after his class advancement would definitely be a terrible one. Furthermore, there would be no save point and he wouldn't be able to start all over again, nor would he be able to stop. Luo Nan had to chew on the bitter fruit of life and he had reached a juncture. He had to make a decision. He could not stop moving forward. Luo Nan couldn't quite understand Her Majesty Empress Wu's thoughts. He was unable to guess the calculations within. He could only follow Bamboo Pole's advice and seek the opinions of others. The first person he thought of was He Yuan, but when he applied for the call she should be dealing with some business and couldn't be distracted. She only left a message saying that she would contact him later. Luo Nan could only skip it for now. His thoughts swept through the list of friends in the Hexaear, pondering over who he should consult. Zhang Yingying had to jump over first. Cragburst seemed to be making a move tonight as well. As for Octopus, Luo Nan had no confidence in his ability to express himself with words, so he simply turned them into words. He left a few messages for his friends asking for advice. Not long after it was sent, the driver suddenly said, "Boss Luo, we're home." Luo Nan was stupefied for a moment. Only then did he realize that he had taken a bit too long to organize his words. The car had already driven to the entrance of the residential area. It was just past dinner time. There were quite a few residents strolling and exercising on the streets. "Thank you, Brother Qi." Luo Nan politely expressed his thanks and got off the car to head home. He only realized halfway there. When did he become accustomed to being addressed as Boss Luo? Luo Nan walked into the house. There was no one in the living room. Luo Nan called out and his uncle Mo Haihang responded from the kitchen. "Oh Luo Nan, wait a moment. The food needs to be reheated." It was already 8 o'clock in the evening. Dinner time had long passed. However, as long as his uncle was home, he would certainly reserve a portion for Luo Nan, the king of stomachs. Luo Nan first went to wash his face and used cold water to stimulate himself. When he returned to the living room, Mrs. Luo Xuqing was already sitting on the sofa in her home clothes. "Auntie." Luo Nan rushed to greet her. He was most afraid of this person in the family. Luo Xuqing had her head lowered as she fiddled with her wristband. Luo Nan's heart thumped when he saw this scene. He immediately bypassed the minefield and headed to the dining room. But he was still too late. A cold and clear voice came from behind him. "Did Mo call yet?" "No. I haven't been in contact for the past 2 days. Maybe Mo ping. Where's he?" Luo Nan turned around. He didn't see the best shield, but this didn't prevent him from diverting the disaster. "He went crazy outside. I hope he'll be back before 9. Mrs. Luo Xuqing's attention shifted a bit, but she soon locked onto her target. "Has Mo confirmed the specific time she'll be returning to Xia City?" The words "return to Xia City" were remarkable. As the saying goes, no one knows a daughter better than a mother. Madame Luo Xuqing had already determined that even if her unfilial daughter returned from the music festival, she wouldn't return home for a while. After all, she would be gone for a month. Things had gotten out of hand. Luo Nan continued to play dumb. "I haven't been in contact for the past 2 days. At most, I'll look at her circle of friends. Won't she be back after the music festival ends?" Luo Xuqing raised her head to look at her nephew. In the end, she couldn't resist her doting heart. She sighed and didn't pursue the matter any further. "Let's go eat. If there's nothing going on at school, we'll adjust the time for supplementary lessons. It's not good to eat too late." Luo Nan responded vaguely and quickly sat at the dining table. His uncle just happened to deliver the sliced beef with a small pancake. The pancake was wrapped with beef and scallions. The texture was firm and crisp. It was very chewy and went well with the rice. Luo Nan was half serious and half fake in order to avoid trouble. He buried his head in the food and didn't give his mouth any time to rest. His uncle sat on the other side of the dining table and sighed. "It's fortunate that you're practicing martial arts. Otherwise, your body would be out of shape if you continued like this every day." This was a good topic. Luo Nan's mouth wasn't idle. He could only nod over and over. Aside from Mo Ping, no one in the family has ever been fat. If you have the ability, then feed that unfilial daughter into a pig. I want to see how she'll go wild in the outside world. Luo Xuqing was annoyed by being alone in the living room, so she came to the dining table. His uncle immediately shut his mouth and smiled, avoiding the frontal attack. Luo Xuqing knew that her husband had an impenetrable ability. Her gaze turned to a certain person who was the easiest to bully. Luo Nan hated that he couldn't stuff the entire beef pancake into his mouth. But he had eaten too quickly just now. The previous roll had already entered his stomach. Right now there was a gap and he couldn't avoid it. His brain heated up, and by some strange coincidence he self-destructed. "Today, a friend's boss wants me to go work at her company." Chapter 346. Luo Nan regretted it the moment he spoke. Moya must have secretly placed a curse on him. That's why he would ignore the consequences and step forward to block the bullet. No matter how much he regretted it, he could no longer swallow the words he had spoken. The consequences of his actions were immediately apparent. His uncle and aunt's gazes were directed at him at the same time. They were puzzled at first, but then they became vigilant. "Your friend? Boss? What do I want you to do? What kind of company is that?" There was a sequence of questions, but the meaning behind them was the same. Luo Nan knew that he had poked a hornet's nest. He was unable to explain why his family's introverted otaku would suddenly attract the interest of a social company. He could only bite the bullet and avoid the question. "I haven't agreed yet. I'm afraid he's just saying it." Luo Xuqing stared into her nephew's eyes. "The question now is, why is this company interested in you? Why can't she be interested in me?" Luo Nan forced himself to be thick-skinned. He was prepared to pester her endlessly at any time. Luo Xuqing wanted to say more, but Mo Haiheng gestured for his wife to stop. He maintained his smile and said calmly, "Let me ask, why didn't you agree? Is the pay not suitable or the time does not permit?" "Yes." Mo Haiheng didn't wait for Luo Nan to finish speaking. "Your cautious attitude is correct. Regardless of age, as long as there was a labor relationship, working hours and pay were very important. How much did they pay you? Luo Nan was stupefied when it came to the specifics. He stared blankly for a moment before replying, "We haven't reached that step yet. If there's a need to talk later, you might as well ask your aunt to be your advisor. She's a senior HR officer in a big company and she specializes in this. She's experienced in scamming people and getting scammed." Luo Nan buried his head in eating. He responded vaguely, "Oh, okay." Luo Xian glared at her husband, but as a married couple for decades she knew some tricks very well, so she immediately changed her words. "Working and being independent is a good thing. What's the name of that company again? I can help you find out the bottom line first. Other things aside, you should be able to grasp the average salary. If you negotiate with them, you will be able to seize the initiative." She had been in the HR business for many years. In terms of human resources management, she had a wide network of contacts and was skilled in the business. He had already opened up a professional search software as he spoke. He could find all the official businesses of Xia City on it. The couple looked amiable on the outside, but in reality they were pressing him. Luo Nan's brain was no longer working in circles. He wasn't good at lying to begin with, so he began to leak out, "I think she's called Blue something? Hidden Indigo Company. It should be an office." Luo Nan half buried his face into his rice bowl. Otherwise, the cold sweat on his forehead would be seen clearly. Now he knew why he was in such a difficult situation in just a month and why he had made so many enemies. This impulse was too deadly. Luo Xian quickly found out the results. Hidden Indigo Firm. Oh, there's registration information and tax payment records. It's mainly engaged in legal consulting business. Seems to be fairly formal. What's the name of the boss who recruited you? Wu. Ahem, I only know her surname is Wu. Wuzhong. Luo Xian read out the name of the legal representative of the firm. For a moment the restaurant was filled with awkwardness. Long live Her Majesty Empress Wu. Luo Nan let out a long breath. Now he had a handle. Wait, samurai. Why not just call her Wu Zetian? Mo Haiheng tapped his fingers on the table and frowned. Of course, there were many unreliable parents in this world. There were all sorts of strange names for their children, but there were extremely few who would specifically use the name of a unique and unmatched character in history. More importantly, this violated the current laws and regulations. Not to mention anything else, it was impossible for the social authority department he worked in to pass such an application for information. But the current situation was that this Mrs. Wu Zhao had used this name in an imposing manner. Moreover, she had used this name to register an official office. Based on his years of experience working in the SCA, he could tell that Wu Zhao, this office, and the corresponding registration information were all fake from start to finish. It could even be said that she was making a mockery of public authority. Or she was a very powerful person who could openly violate certain social rules. Of course, she must be very willful. Mo Haiheng was unable to immediately verify these judgments, nor did he say them out loud. His mind spun like lightning, but his face remained smiling as he asked, "She took the initiative to express interest in you. This is very good. This means that you have a skill that is useful to her business." "What is it specifically?" "Yeah, what was it?" Luo Nan was a bit absent-minded. He held a cautious attitude toward Her Majesty Empress Wu's basis for recruiting him. It was hard not to be suspicious when he carried a treasure on him. He didn't have an answer right now, but he couldn't stop talking. He could only rack his brain and comb through his abilities on the surface. Fortunately, a flash of inspiration struck him before he suffocated to death. He combined today's experience and found a reason. "They appreciate my sketching ability." Sketching. Luo Nan's answer was more or less outside of the expectations of the two parents. They looked at each other once more. They knew that Luo Nan had a sketching ability. He could sketch a vivid and lifelike drawing in an extremely short amount of time. But what was the use of this toy? Luo Xian immediately asked, "What does the Hidden Indigo firm need this kind of employee for? Seems to be a detective or something." Nowadays, many people carry anti-surveillance equipment. Some things are hard to operate and it will arouse the other party's vigilance. They want to recruit someone like me to give it a try. Private detective. Luo Xian's brows locked tight. This sort of job. Yeah. I also feel that this sort of job is a bit strange. It's just that I can't refuse them face to face because of my friend. I'll wait for the other side's enthusiasm to subside in 2 days. Then I'll refuse. Luo Nan finished speaking in a single breath and let out a long sigh of relief. He had finally made the connection, but he would certainly collapse if he continued speaking. He immediately swept the food off the table like a whirlwind sweeping away the clouds. Then he stood up. That's about it. Uncle and Auntie, don't worry. I won't run off into society. Oh, the materials for today's supplementary lessons should be sent over. There's also homework. I'm going upstairs. He didn't even tidy up the dishes after he finished speaking. He turned around and left. Luo Shuqing still wanted to call out to him, but Mo Haiheng gestured for her to calm down. The two made eye contact, and Luo Shuqing discovered that her husband's attitude was extremely serious. Luo Nan went up to the second floor in a few steps and fled to his room. He locked the door and finally relaxed. He lay on the bed, swayed a few times, and then began to roll around while holding his head. "Bunan, you pig. Dumbass. Idiot," he muttered as he defiled himself to relieve the hatred in his heart. But soon he began to feel weak in his heart. His two elders should be pondering over his matter right now. His words were full of flaws. He shouldn't think of getting through this easily. For now he needed to do some detective work. Oh no, it should be the work of a spy. Yes, with his mental sensing ability, there were no secrets to the conversation between uncle and auntie. When the time came, he would design a plan to deal with suspicions. It shouldn't be hard to brush them off, right? Chapter 347. Mr. Luo, are you looking for me? Yuan asked through the hex ear. Her voice was low and hoarse. She was probably in a rather tired state. Luo Nan grunted, unable to respond immediately. He remembered Bamboo Pole's example, and knew that Yuan was also under a lot of pressure. It was inevitable that he would feel a little embarrassed constantly troubling her. Mr. Luo? Yuan's tone was still questioning, but her attitude was still very calm. It's like this. Just now Brother Bamboo Pole mentioned. Luo Nan did his best to make a long story short. He talked about how Bamboo Pole earned extra money and how he helped Her Majesty Empress Wu recruit him. In the end, he naturally asked for Yuan's opinion. Yuan didn't respond immediately. She was silent for approximately half a minute. When she opened her mouth again, she didn't rush to answer Luo Nan's question. Instead, she inquired about the details of the time, including the examples that Luo Nan was too embarrassed to elaborate on. She asked about them one by one. Luo Nan was basically forced by Yuan to recollect the situation at the time once more. He felt even more awkward. He felt like he was a villain who was trying to stir up trouble. Yuan didn't care about this. After thinking for a moment, she opened her mouth and said, Mr. Luo, are you considering whether or not to join? Or are you considering Her Majesty Empress Wu's thoughts? These words hit the nail on the head. Luo Nan had gone through this period of contemplation, and Yuan had forced him to recall. Luo Nan was more or less clear about his own thoughts. Why did he join the hidden indigo firm? In the past, Zhang Yingying had also introduced the firm to him. The main business of this firm was to provide services to the rich and powerful of Xia City. They looked for rich men to catch sheep, managed interpersonal relationships, made investments, and so on. This wasn't the life Luo Nan wanted except for a generous income. Luo Nan didn't have anything to hide. He immediately responded, I don't understand what Her Majesty Empress Wu is thinking. Well, hold on. She doesn't seem to be particularly eager to recruit me. A flash of inspiration flashed through Luo Nan's mind as he spoke, and the meaning of the latter half of the sentence changed. Yuan declined to comment. What's the reason? A few days ago the firm did a business outsourcing. This model suits me very well. At least it's more suitable than working in the firm. If it wasn't for this matter and I'm in urgent need of money now, I might really join. But since there's a better way, it'll definitely affect the so-called recruitment. Isn't that so? Luo Nan was a bit lacking in confidence when he spoke to this point. He urgently needed to seek advice. Yuan replied, There's no problem with the overall train of thought. Really? There's only one thing that needs to be corrected. According to Her Majesty Empress Wu's temperament, the business opportunities you've obtained should be compensation. Luo Nan expressed his lack of understanding. Yuan explained to him, According to what you've said, Bamboo Pole's evaluation of Her Majesty Empress Wu is quite appropriate. Her Majesty Empress Wu has always abided by the law and disregarded morality. She seems to not bother with trifles normally, but she is actually very strict, both to others and to herself. It wasn't just this time. In the past, Bamboo Pole had also mentioned this point in class and had even given a few examples. But when Luonan thought of Zhang Yingying, he went a bit off track. He really couldn't imagine how that sister, with her flying and bouncing temperament, was able to survive under the pressure of her strict boss. It would be difficult to establish a relevant impression. But now that He Yuan had said the same thing, he had no choice but to believe it. Harsh it is. I don't want to go anymore. What does this have to do with compensation? Because of the headquarters. He Yuan's words hit the nail on the head. Headquarters took action against you after Her Majesty Empress Wu agreed to protect you from President Ouyang. The situation was critical at the time. Admittedly, Black Beetle was the reason behind it, but an oversight is an oversight. Her Majesty Empress Wu is harsh to herself and others. Mending the pen after the sheep is lost must be done. Otherwise, even if Yingying is different from ordinary people, it would be very difficult to obtain Her Majesty Empress Wu's agreement to give you a deal worth several million. Luonan suddenly realized, no wonder. Otherwise, it could be said that there was no such thing as meat pies falling from the sky in this world. Now the feeling of unease brought about by the generous business rewards vanished like smoke in thin air. So this was exchanged with his life. Of course, Her Majesty Empress Wu's principle of self-discipline and Zhang Yingying's care and concern were still engraved in his heart. And now, after He Yuan explained the compensation, she changed the topic and entered the main topic. As for this recruitment, it's just as you said. Her Majesty Empress Wu probably doesn't expect you to join the hidden indigo firm. She had Bamboo Pole deliver the message. She probably expressed her attitude more than anything else. What attitude? Her Majesty Empress Wu is well known for pushing down the wall. She has devoted herself to forging a brand new social order these past few years, allowing ability users to seamlessly enter the secular society. Naturally, it is easier for young people to exert influence in promoting and putting her theories into practice. In fact, she is famous for her love of training young people with potential. Brother Bamboo Pole talked about this before. Well, are you saying that Her Majesty Empress Wu is displaying her appreciation for me? He Yuan let out a rare chuckle. The word display is well used. Luonan's mind went in circles. So you're saying that the so-called display isn't for me but for other people? If this wasn't the case, then why would Her Majesty Empress Wu send the message through Bamboo Pole? And why would Bamboo Pole ask you to consult others? This is to release public opinion, to expand its influence, and to declare its attitude to people with intentions. In this way, people like headquarters won't have to consider the factor of Her Majesty Empress Wu's deep involvement if they want to make a move against you. Bamboo Pole is quite right. Public and private matters are different in the end. Nothing is more ideal than balancing public and private matters. Luonan finally understood the twists and turns within. He let out a long sigh of relief, but he also had a bit of complex emotions. So you're saying that the so-called recruitment is just an empty title? I say. He Yuan's voice was gentle as she spoke softly. Mr. Luo shouldn't be unduly humble. Her Majesty Empress Wu is harsh on herself and others. Her standards are extremely high. If Mr. Luo isn't up to par, then she wouldn't even give you a glance. She wouldn't even put on this sort of attitude. To put it bluntly, this is an expression of goodwill. It's an investment for the future. That's enough, Sister Yuan. I'm not someone with a heart of glass. I know my own position. I have Her Majesty Empress Wu's explicit words to protect me. What's there to be dissatisfied about? Luonan responded with a brisk tone. After dispelling his doubts, he was really embarrassed to take up more of He Yuan's time. He immediately said, Sister Yuan, I'm relieved after you explain things. You still have things to do over there, right? Hurry up and do what you need to do. I'm doing homework and I still have evening classes. It's nothing. It's just some routine work. I've already finished dealing with it. But you've been arranging your homework tightly. Can you handle it? No problem. You don't mind, do you? Luonan suddenly recalled that he had repeated Bamboo Pole's example and evaluation to He Yuan. Those words weren't anything good. Of course, Luonan's question was really stupid. Mind what? Her Majesty Empress Wu is just taking the opportunity to knock me down a bit. Huh. Bamboo Pole certainly counted me in when he told you to consult others. Most of those words were said for me to hear. It's probably because I've been acting too hastily in the branch recently. Sister Yueyin. Luonan didn't know what to say for a time. He knew that Yueyin was under enormous pressure from Bamboo Pole's evaluation. If another extraordinary were to express her opposition, then Yueyin's handling of matters in the future would become even more burdensome. Yueyin turned around to comfort him while he was worrying. You know your own position and so do I. Bamboo Pole said that my goal is much clearer than yours. Actually, what he said isn't correct. Your goal is equally clear. It's just that many aspects are involved in realizing it. It's too complicated between light and dark. It's not easy to start. Yes, that's the logic. Yueyin's words really spoke to the bottom of Luonan's heart. His goal, whether it was to clear his grandfather's name or to protect his mother's work of art, involved many levels and many powers. They were all intertwined with each other. He didn't have the skill to solve this problem. He didn't have the corresponding sharpness to cut through the Gordian knot. It was as if Yueyin could hear his thoughts. She said, since it's like this, I might as well say a cliché. Sharpening the knife will not delay the work of chopping wood. If you really don't know where to start, then just sharpen the knife. Wait until the blade is sharp and there will be a day when your worries will be severed. Yes, I know. Sister Yueyin, I will definitely work hard. Luonan couldn't help feeling a bit embarrassed when he spoke to this point. Why did he sound like an elementary school student writing a pledge? Yueyin didn't mind. She said softly, your mental ability to interfere with matter has just manifested. You don't know what to do. You must be careful. If you don't want to go to Bai Xinyan's place, there's no harm in going to Divine Yu Gym. They're quite brilliant at nurturing energy, solidifying the foundation and cultivating the body. Yes, Gym Master Xiu is truly talented. Luonan spoke sincerely. Yueyin paused for a moment. Then she suddenly asked, you're still cultivating the eye's orifice? Yeah. Gym Master Xiu said that the eye's orifice has just reached small success. It needs to be consolidated until yin and yang are connected from the outside. And then you need to cultivate the ear orifice and the mouth orifice. At the very least, you need to cultivate the 3 essentials. Only then can you proceed to the next step. Yueyin gave a light grunt and said, the 3 essentials of the 9 orifice are to clear the internal organs, solidify the essence and energy and purify the mind. These are the proper paths of cultivation. There's no harm in cultivating them seriously. But if it's just some bizarre talk or daydream, then you don't need to pay attention to it. But Luonan didn't understand what she meant by daydream for a time. By the time he came back to his senses, Yueyin had already said goodnight to him and ended the communication. This was strange. Why did she suddenly say this? Yueyin seemed to be quite familiar with Gym Master Xiu. Luonan was puzzled. He faintly sensed something. A knock came from the door on the first floor. It was Mo Peng, who had had his fill of playing outside, casually entering the house. Only now did Luonan remember that he still needed to investigate the conversation between his aunt and uncle. But when his soul strength covered the area, the 2 elders were already lecturing their son in the living room. There was nothing for him to do for the time being. Luonan listened for a few minutes, but he didn't gain anything. He simply collected his mind and went to do his own things. He finished his homework and took out the basic physics exercises prepared by worker Zhai. He began to ponder and tackle them. Right now his god gear and body gear were meshed together. His energy flow was dense and comprehensive. If he really put his mind to it, there were very few people who could reach his level of concentration. Soon 2 hours passed. It was already past 10 o'clock. Luonan stretched his back. He followed the Daoist technique taught to him by Gym Master Xiu. He loosened his joints and relaxed them step by step. His muscles, bones, and skin were wrapped around his body. For a time, muffled sounds rang out incessantly from his body. At the same time, a warm current enshrouded him. It was extremely comfortable. Chapter 348. Night sounds. Luonan put everything down and got onto the bed. He stripped down to his underpants, adjusted his breathing, and began his night training. A thin layer of sweat covered his body after half an hour of breathing guidance, but the state of his body and mind had already recovered to their peak. The flame of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice flickered within his brain. Luo Nan's thoughts stirred and the heart lantern flickered, sending the warm light into his internal organs. Gym Master Xiao once said that after the cultivation of the eye's orifice reached small success, the inner vision would be like the sun and moon illuminating the mountains and rivers. Even if one could not truly see through the wondrous attainments of life without missing anything, one could still pierce through the clouds and break through the mist. Luo Nan saw that the structure of his internal organs had the shape of a rampart under the spiritual light of his internal vision. It was like a high cliff and deep valley with towering rocks. The disorderly layout was vague. He didn't care about this. He just merged his mind with his eyes. The sun and moon rotated and shone down, fixing on the gate of life in his spine. He burned and refined his essence energy, gradually pouring it into the bottom of the perineum. When the yang energy was full, it naturally surged up and seeped into his internal organs. This time it was like water sprinkling on lava. Vital energy hissed and boiled. It was like roiling clouds, changing shape in myriad ways. Luo Nan felt such a sign when he burned and refined his essence energy. After a moment of shock, he was delighted. Burning the pill furnace, filling the mountain with smoke. The technique of transforming essence into qi has already reached its peak. The next step is to reach the peak of Kunlun and then open up a field of blessings. No wonder even Master Lien said that we should wait for the torrent to pour down and overflow before making a judgment. The time is right and it's clearly today. It must be known that Luo Nan's body and soul were originally imbalanced. He had no choice but to use all the vital energy in his body to nourish the eye's orifice, forming a body gear. Only then did he have the opportunity to borrow the majestic and vast power of the God gear. If he hadn't comprehended the coupling technique, he might have had to toss and turn for several months. He might even have had to undergo some strengthening surgery in order to maintain that fragile balance. But things in this world always move in the opposite direction when pushed to the extreme. Luo Nan received his mother's blessing, comprehended the coupling technique, and crossed the most difficult juncture. The crisis transformed and the corresponding benefits were greater. Ordinary people relied on time and effort to cultivate the internal refinement technique. If one wanted to reach the level of burning the pill furnace and filling the mountains with clouds, it was possible to cultivate for 7 days, 8 days, 9 days, or even 100 days, a year, or even 3 years. But Luo Nan was here. The power of formatting theory was far too great and the glacial ocean hung high. Even if he only poured a little and interfered, he would still advance bravely. Ever since the heart lantern of the eye's orifice had broken the boundaries of interference, it had become unstoppable in the short 7 days. With just a few thoughts flashing through his mind, clouds gathered in the middle of his chest and abdomen. They were dyed with 5 different colors. Especially where his liver and gallbladder were, the green aura was the thickest. According to the classical theory of the East, the eye's orifice was like the mouth of a spring with its source below. The Nan. Oh. Yang. Ancient. The mechanism affected the entire body, including the liver, gallbladder, eyes, fingers, and tendons. It seemed to be bouncing around, but it was actually all connected in one breath. This was what Gym Master Xiao meant when he said, "The body is like a mountain range densely planted with soil. The breath is like flowing water, twisting and turning. My eye's orifice reservoir is finally connected to the source. It's flowing water." Earlier, Luo Nan had exhausted all of his vital energy to open the eye's orifice, barely able to withstand the terrifying pressure of the God Wheel. The iceberg ocean continued to pour soul power into his eye's orifice. His eye's orifice was just like a reservoir with limited capacity. Even with the coupling art, the continuous impacts caused his pupils to crack with electricity. But now the situation was different. The eye's aperture connected the qi and blood of the liver and gallbladder, and it could also circulate to the fascia of the whole body. From there, the viscera, muscles, bones, skin, and hair could all be digested one by one, and the load capacity would increase dramatically. It would truly become the body chakra, constantly rotating. In this way, it could be said that the inside was connected to the outside, and the bitterness was over before the sweetness came. Just the power of the divine wheel's nourishment alone was enough for him to enjoy for a while. It was midnight, the time when the qi in the liver flowed. After the pleasantly surprised mood passed, Luo Nan suppressed his feelings of joy and calmed his mind. He adjusted the flow of energy more and more carefully, wanting to complete the task. 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye. Luo Nan waited for the yin and yang of the liver and gallbladder to automatically adjust the fire of the heart, the water of the kidneys and the energy to circulate. Then Luo Nan woke up. He opened his eyes and his thoughts stirred. He had his own response and he knew that it was around 3 in the morning. Right now he was overflowing with energy and his mind was healthy and refreshed. It was no longer suitable for him to sleep, but this wasn't his usual rhythm of work and rest. Just as he was mulling over what he should do, his mind stirred. Someone was talking nearby and his name was mentioned. With the level of Luo Nan's mental senses, he could pry into the information of all living beings within a radius of several kilometers. It was just that this information was far too complex, and it had the effect of accelerating the growth of his soul strength. It increased the burden, so Luo Nan normally maintained the radius of his mental senses at around 10 meters. Most of the time he was in a standby state, only reacting to evil thoughts, ominous intents and other dangers. But perhaps it was because his cultivation had just advanced, but the sensitivity of his mental senses had increased by a large margin. The way it appeared was quite different from before. His mind was like a calm lake reflecting several stars. It was like the reflection of the distant starry sky. Then the corresponding information joined together and transformed, forming an even more concrete figure. The words they exchanged were all reflected in the lake of his mind. Oh, it's aunt and uncle. That's right. Who else could it be? The two elders were in their bedroom. They leaned side by side against the headboard, conversing in low voices. It could be seen that they hadn't slept at all last night. They had been conversing all this time. Though Luo Nan possessed inconceivable mental senses, he normally wouldn't go so far as to eavesdrop. He just heard his own name and he did that stupid thing at night. He couldn't help but feel a bit guilty and he was even more curious. I'll eavesdrop just once. Tonight. Luo Nan found an excuse for himself and he truly used his heart to sense. This time he was like an incorporeal specter, lurking in his aunt and uncle's bedroom. He could hear and see and it was as if he was there in person. Luo Nan was already unable to recall what they had said before, but the first words that truly entered his ears caused his mind to be stimulated. Could it be that Dad or perhaps Zhongheng's friends have come to Xia City? They've been in the wilderness for 20 years. They've gone against civilization and they're on sensitive projects. It's already good enough that they haven't become enemies. Why would they come over? The one speaking in front was his aunt Luo Xuqing. The dad she spoke of was naturally Luo Nan's grandfather Luo Yuandao. Zhongheng was Luo Nan's father Luo Zhongheng. From Luo Nan's perspective, these two names were the ones he cared about the most, even though the direction of his emotions were quite different. He immediately paid 120% of his attention. Luo Xuqing was a bit dissatisfied when she heard her husband's response. Don't play dumb. You know who I'm talking about. Yes, I know. But I checked the entry and exit records of the airport. Yan Yongbua has been flying back and forth across the Pacific Ocean recently. He's been to Luo City at least 5 or 6 times. The trouble he's gotten into clearly comes from within Quantum Corporation. Do you think they have influence over Quantum Corporation? They? Who was they? Was it related to his grandfather and father? Luo Nan didn't hear it, but he knew that the topic these two elders were talking about right now involved their family friend, Yan Yongbua. It made sense. Back then, Yan Yongbua had humiliated his family in front of everyone at the restaurant. He had vowed in all sincerity that he would take back the reputation of his old man Yan Hong. Whether or not Yan Yongbua's words were reasonable, the endorsement of Quantum Corporation really did give people a lot of pressure. A few days passed and this brother suddenly vanished without a trace. It was hard not to be suspicious of his anticlimactic ending. Luo Nan didn't completely understand the ins and outs of this matter, but compared to other more important matters he didn't have the mind to ponder over these small details. But from the perspective of his aunt and uncle, the tiger skin of Quantum Corporation was still quite a deterrent to the secular world. Even if their family was considered a relatively wealthy middle-class family, they weren't on the same level when compared to a capital giant like Quantum Corporation. If things didn't go well, their family would be ruined. Luo Nan couldn't help but feel a bit ashamed when he thought of this. His aunt and uncle had been shouldering such a large amount of pressure for the past month, but they had never mentioned it to him. He was quite careless. He had forgotten about it many times. What method should he think of to appease his two elders? Luo Nan was pondering over this matter when he heard his aunt sneer. Are you looking down on vagrants? I, as an HR employee, know that vagrants have been returning to the city with great momentum in recent years. A portion of them erased their criminal records and transformed into big bosses. This isn't just one or two examples. His uncle sighed. Then you're counting on a former vagrant boss who erased his criminal record to come out and help? I didn't say that. His uncle pulled open the bedside table and took out an electronic cigarette that had been sealed for a long time. He wanted to put it in his mouth, but he stopped and held it in his hand. I'd rather they stay in the wilderness forever. These people are used to the law of the jungle and religion is involved. There has never been a lack of madmen and ambitious people. The old man is still alive. He's a symbol at the very least. He's a constraint. I don't think they'll talk reason with us once the situation changes. If they join forces with the powers in the city, I'm afraid things will get even more lively. Luo Shuqing was quite vigilant. They're looking for you again. They haven't met but they've called a few times. They're asking for help in changing data and the like. Whether they succeed or not, they're very polite. You're right. They're inclined to enter the city. The focus of Luo Shuqing's attention had already changed. What about Nan Nan? Did they make contact with Nan Nan? Do you mean to say that Wu Jiong? His uncle finally put the electronic cigarette in his mouth. The vapor evaporated and he sighed. I don't know. I really don't know. The husband and wife were no longer in the mood to talk in the bedroom. They just endured like this, letting the pressure of silence slowly accumulate. Luo Nan's telepathic thoughts lingered for a few minutes before he felt very oppressed. He quietly withdrew. Luo Nan was stupefied after his senses withdrew. His aunt and uncle had guessed Her Majesty Empress Wu's origins due to problems with the source of their information, but their direction was completely wrong. But the information within their words made Luo Nan understand that in this world, in a certain corner of the boundless wilderness, there were some people who possessed a strange and intimate relationship with his grandfather and father. The wilderness. Vagrants. All right, he suddenly pulled out another thread. It seemed to be very far away, but it seemed to be very heavy behind it. Luo Nan lay on his bed and looked at the ceiling. His leisurely mood of looking for trouble instantly transformed into a myriad of thoughts. A feeling of impatience and depression. There were too many things he needed to do, but it was hard to accomplish them. He thought about it and realized that the little bit of internal refinement he had just obtained was nothing to be happy about. Chapter 349. Luo Nan's mind was still a mess even after being in a daze for a long time. The hour hand was already pointing to 4 o'clock. Another hour passed unknowingly. Luo Nan was in a bad mood. His mind was originally in an extremely clear state, but now it had been stirred into a pot of porridge. This won't do. Luo Nan tried to sever his terrible state of mind. He thought of He Yuan's teachings and immediately murmured, "Sharpening the blade won't delay the chopping of wood. Sharpening the blade won't delay the chopping of wood. Sharpening the blade won't delay the chopping of wood." He recited this proverb over a dozen times like a chant, forcefully replacing his chaotic thoughts. In the end he was a bit tired. Luo Nan used the back of his hand to press his forehead. His state of mind gradually calmed down. He didn't have any new experiences, but his turbid thoughts gradually became clear. Sister Yuan's incantation was quite considerate. Actually, he recited the incantation 1,000 times and thought of 10,000 countermeasures. In the end it all boiled down to one sentence. You're not an extraordinary. In recent months he had followed He Yuan to grasp the world order in and out of the psychic wave network. He had followed Bamboo Pole to learn the notes of the most important people in the world. Wasn't this principle what he had learned? To put it bluntly, the inner world was a simple society built by a group of inhumans who had awakened their abilities. Even though they were influenced by the secular world, money, resources, and connections played a large role. In the end, personal strength was still the most important. Why did Bamboo Pole want him to rely on Her Majesty Empress Wu? It was because Her Majesty Empress Wu was an extraordinary. Her strength was profound, her resources were abundant, and she was revered by others. She could handle matters that Luo Nan was unable to handle, and she could solve problems that Luo Nan was unable to solve. In this sense, Her Majesty Empress Wu could be swapped with any other extraordinary. The result would be the same. At most, the difference would be whether or not they were easy to serve. Of course, if Luo Nan himself was an extraordinary, then there would be no need for a swap. Most things would be impossible to happen. Even if they did happen, they would quickly dissolve. This was the special status of extraordinaries. If Luo Nan could solve it himself, he naturally wouldn't want to do it for someone else. But the reality was that he was still far from being an extraordinary. Right now he could barely be considered a blunt blade. He needed to grind the blade to an unstoppable edge, and he needed to smash a lot of hard work. He Yuan used the proverb, "Sharpening the blade won't delay the chopping of wood," to advise him. She was mostly worried that Luo Nan would lose his patience and confidence due to the difficult and tedious process. Luo Nan wasn't that frivolous and useless, but it would be a lie to say that he was extremely patient. He was willing to put in blood, sweat, and tears for the sharpening knife. No matter how hard it was, he could support it. But if this process was a clumsy, slow, and meticulous process, he would not be able to stand it. Her grandfather, who was on the verge of death, could not wait any longer, and neither could the ferocious enemy. He didn't want to leave behind irreparable regrets, and he didn't want his head to be chopped off by a powerful enemy before he succeeded. Harder, faster. This was the cultivation rhythm that Luo Nan hoped for. To do this, he could only rely on two things. One was formatting theory and the corresponding coupling method. The other was the internal cultivation method that Gym Master Xiu had imparted to him, which was to nurture one's essence and qi. The latter was personally guided by Hull Master Xiu, so the route was clear and orderly. There was no need to worry about making a mistake, making it the most efficient. However, this kind of internal refinement technique, be it the breathing or the opening of acupoints, was very particular about fire control and could not be rash. Just like this moment, Luo Nan had just brought the eye's orifice to perfection, and it was no longer suitable for him to make hasty movements. He needed to calm down for several days before planning his next move. Then, there was only one thing left for him to figure out and achieve some results. Formatting theory. Luo Nan knew very well that the astonishing progress of his internal refinement cultivation was due to the grinding and influence of formatting theory, transforming the powerful potential energy of the vast glacial ocean. Now that the cultivation of the eye's orifice was complete, he still needed to rely on formatting theory for the next step of cultivation. No matter how one looked at it, formatting theory was his foundation. He couldn't slack off in the related research. And there was a state that was the most suitable for pondering over formatting theory. The time was 4:10. Luo Nan looked at his daily schedule through the hexier. There was still around an hour before the normal morning exercise time. Luo Nan estimated the time limit, but he didn't get up. He just squinted his eyes and silently cried out, "Come out." The void chains trembled and a pulling force rose out of thin air. It pulled his soul out of his body with a jolt. Yes, what Luo Nan needed to do was to go into an out-of-body state. Formatting theory itself was flawed and the hidden dangers were great. The unconventional increase in soul strength led to an imbalance between body and soul. And the time when the increase was the fiercest was often when the soul was in an out-of-body state. Ever since the incident at Frost River Reality, Luo Nan's situation with the imbalance between body and soul had reached a critical level. He had no choice but to seal this method and not use it again. But was formatting theory still formatting theory if it couldn't increase soul strength? Luo Nan had inherited his grandfather's theory. He had the desire to reform and perfect it. This was a process of constant trial and error. How could he make mistakes? Naturally, he had to make a mistake in order to correct it. In the past, Luo Nan's body and soul were imbalanced. His condition was critical and he lost the space to make mistakes. But now his cultivation had advanced and his body gear was constantly rotating. His foundation had become more solid, and his ability to deal with risks had greatly increased. Some things needed to be put on the agenda. If he didn't act now, would he have to wait for death to come? Would he have to close his eyes and wait for death? Luo Nan didn't want to close his eyes and wait for death. He wanted to open his eyes and look at the world. He wanted to use the perspective of formatting theory to make scientific judgments and then use practice to verify the results. He pushed forward layer by layer like this, using the greatest effort and the fastest speed to climb to the level of extraordinary. I can do it. I must do it. Luo Nan's conviction gradually became clear. The soul body floating outside his body was like a fish. It gently swayed and submerged into the boundless and boundless sea of the mind. The range of his senses instantly expanded tenfold. 100-fold. His thoughts stirred slightly and he looked at his seemingly sleeping fleshly body. He also swept his gaze over his silent and sleepless elder. His soul body then flashed and submerged into the void. Without the burden of his fleshly body, the movement speed of his soul body only depended on the method and technique he used to interfere with space. It wasn't strange for him to travel several kilometers with a single thought. In the blink of an eye, Luo Nan was far away from the community he was in. He went deep into the depths of the metropolis that was about to wake up. His mind wandered through the metropolis. The feeling of familiarity and strangeness increased layer by layer. In the past, every time Luo Nan's soul left his body, it was always during critical and pressing moments. It was rare for him to purely observe and feel like this. The life sketches of all living beings appeared one after another within the range of his senses. Together they formed a deep starry sky that continued to expand. The living starry sky and the true night sky interweaved to form a labyrinth on the mental and material planes. There might even be unknown treasures hidden within. This was an experience that was hard to come by under normal circumstances. Luo Nan wasn't bewitched by the labyrinth. He quickly confirmed his direction and moved like a ghost in the night. He was hidden and then disappeared, but he advanced in a straight line. He didn't avoid tall buildings, flying cars, or light rails. He passed right through them. It was 4:20 in the morning. A mere 10 minutes later, Luo Nan's soul body was already flying above the Pingjiang district. The campus of Acumen College and the towering buildings of Cloud City Water Village entered the range of his senses. Chapter 350. Luo Nan was shocked after confirming the time. His aunt's house was approximately 80 kilometers away from Acumen College. Given the city's speed limit, the flying car would arrive in an hour. He had only spent 10 minutes just now. In other words, the flying speed of his soul body was close to 500 kilometers per hour. Luo Nan had gotten a rough sense of the flying speed of his soul when he first realized the out-of-body state. He just felt that it was fast, but he never expected it to be this fast. It must be known that he was just casually flying. He was far from reaching his limits. It was completely possible for him to increase his speed by a large margin if he truly exerted his strength. Perhaps it was catalyzed by his progress during this period of time. The radius of the main city area of Xia City and the satellite cities was no more than 300 to 400 kilometers. In other words, he could easily reach any location in Xia City within an hour. It was also possible for him to travel a full circle in Xia City in a single night. He could even travel several thousand kilometers. This was the marvels of the out-of-body state. Luo Nan just didn't know if there would be any problems with the order frame formed by the God Gear and Body Gear if his soul body was too far away. Luo Nan immediately slowed down the flying speed of his soul. He divided a bit of his mental energy to sense the changes in his fleshly body 80 kilometers away. The out-of-body state had quite a large effect on the order frame of Luo Nan's body and soul. The pressure of soul strength on his body was practically zero, but it had also separated from the external neuron. It was no longer the thick and orderly structure of a vast ocean of icebergs. The God Gear didn't live up to its name. Luo Nan tried to activate the heart lantern of the eye's orifice, but there was no response. Only now was he convinced that a corresponding material carrier was needed in order to effectively interfere with reality on the mental plane. It was just like Luo Nan's order frame. No matter how strong the God Gear was, it was useless without the coordination of the body gear. Luo Nan couldn't help but feel a bit disappointed. This way, the actual use of the out-of-body state was rather limited. He needed to prepare for a rainy day. He needed to make a few more human-faced arachnids for backup before the Wraith sign returned. Luo Nan pondered over this matter, but he had some doubts. Were mentally enhanced ability users like Old Man Yu and Mr. Bai people who undoubtedly possessed the ability of out-of-body state? Were their out-of-body states the same? If not, how did they display their abilities normally? He thought left and right, but he was unable to grasp the gist of it. He wanted to give He Yuan a suggestion to add an out-of-body state application course. In any case, it was impossible to solve this problem tonight. Luo Nan calmed his mind, discarding the useless distracting thoughts. His soul body flickered, and when it reappeared, he was already in the air above the buildings of Cloud City Water Village. He locked onto the observation platform above Ocean Sky Cloud City, and he floated down. At 4 o'clock in the morning, there would naturally be no one on the observation deck. It was cold and silent. Though Luo Nan's soul strength did not affect the material plane, it collided with the consciousness of a living being on the mental plane. In the central crystal pillar of Ocean Sky Cloud City, The mutant devil ray that was originally suspended in the water and resting suddenly became excited. Its huge flat body swayed, and as it spun in the air habitually, it was like a huge drill that was rapidly moving upwards. It rapidly advanced towards the top of the crystal pillar, where the heavenly ocean lake was located on the observation deck. Since there was such a ferocious creature entrenched here, Fairski Cloud couldn't let his guard down. Every night there were professionals on duty. Inside and outside the crystal pillar, there were also different types of surveillance cameras at work. As soon as the devil ray moved, its special posture triggered the alarm of the surveillance system. Groans could be heard everywhere in the building's central control room. This monster is going crazy again. It's hundreds of thousands just for one round of trouble. Hurry up and release the baffle. The so-called baffle was a temporary defensive device installed by Cloud City Water Village after the devil ray smashed through the tempered glass at the bottom of the heavenly ocean lake. It had no other use than to prevent the devil ray from smashing a huge hole in the heavenly ocean lake. Luo Nan could feel the chaos within the building. He felt quite embarrassed, so he used psychic waves to support himself and pacify the devil ray's restless emotions. The devil ray's intelligence was passable. It had once been suppressed by the high imitation human-faced arachnid, but under Luo Nan's control, it felt all sorts of novel, interesting and extremely powerful states. As a result, it was both respectful and fearful of Luo Nan's special psychic wave frequency. Right now it was already ranked as a staff member of the societal format diagram. According to the definition of the order, it could be called a believer or a follower. Luo Nan's telepathic thoughts descended, and the devil ray didn't dare to resist. It immediately stopped its momentum and turned its body. It saw the fish and shrimps that were fleeing in all directions, alarmed by its actions. It immediately swallowed a bunch of them and let out some blood over at Fairski Cloud City. There was no need to mention just how great of a loss the devil ray, which had woken up in the middle of the night, would bring to the relevant parties. Luo Nan's soul body stayed on the viewing platform, observing the wetland jungle to the north of Acumen College. He remained motionless for a long time. There was gear within the jungle, but the viewing platform was over a dozen kilometers away from the wetland jungle. The sky was dark and silent, making it difficult for ordinary people to see it. Luo Nan could see it. A distance of over a dozen kilometers had already far exceeded the limits of Luo Nan's mental senses when his body and soul were one. Back then he had used the coupling of the god gear and body gear to stimulate the heart lantern of the eye's orifice to rub his psychic light and illuminate the earth below. Only then was he able to bring gear within the jungle into his clairvoyance. Now that his mind had wandered to this point, the coupling of the god gear and body gear was no longer possible. However, after his out-of-body state, the range of his senses had increased explosively by 10 times. He was able to see clearly under pure observation. The problem was that no matter how much he observed, it was hard to trigger the wondrous sensation of gear being the eye of heaven and earth, the universe grand format. This result was not unexpected at all. From the moment Luo Nan's heart lantern illuminated gear, he truly understood that the wondrous aspects contained within gear could not be seen by the naked eye. Mental senses could not illuminate it clearly. Only the two modes of sight and mental senses through coupling could cross and grind each other. Only then could one touch the reality behind the surface and determine how the law and order operated, transformed and nurtured within the void of heaven and earth. Pure mental senses were still lacking in meaning. If it were possible, Luo Nan obviously wished to truly go to the viewing platform and observe gear with clairvoyance day and night. He wanted to feel and comprehend the wondrous aspects within. But this week, whether it was the viewing platform or the interior of gear, there were demonic shadows flickering one after another. It was a bad mood. Whatever. Let's just get closer and observe. Luo Nan's out-of-body state of mind had absolutely not chosen this place on a whim. He had a clear goal and plan. His soul body flew away from Ocean Sky Cloud City, and with another thought he shifted to the wetland jungle. Gear was right in front of him. Right now the lights within the building were completely extinguished. The pitch-black cave was completely devoid of people. Entering this place at this time and in this sort of situation required a bit of courage. Well, if someone really did come, Luo Nan did not mind testing the quality of this fellow. Unfortunately, there was no one. Luo Nan's soul body passed through the wall and entered the interior of gear. His mental senses naturally covered every space and every nook and cranny of the 12 floors, leaving nothing out. He could do all of this when his soul and body were one. He could do it even better because he had the heart lantern of the eye's orifice, which was more suited to the environment of gear. But it was still the same old saying. There were people in front of him and there were eyes behind his head. He could not act willfully. Only when his internal refinement was successful and he reckoned that he could resist the pressure of the explosive increase in his soul strength could this matter be accomplished. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.